Hey, welcome to the show. It's about to be 1 week since the 2 year anniversary of the Uvalde school shooting that happened. If you didn't remember, last 2 years ago, we did a special all about Uvalde. Then last year, we did a special all about Uvalde. What the hell happened? Tonight, there's more. For the very first time, you're gonna, for the very first time, the teacher who witnessed it all, who was in the classroom, who witnessed the gunman, speaks out for the very first time. She describes all about the day the gunman went into Robb Elementary. Will we know more than ever about what happened? Take a look.
Amelia Amy Money is reminded every day of the terror she survived 2 years ago at Robb Elementary.
I picture the hallway. It takes me back to that day, just running in the hallway and saying, "Get in your rooms."
A piercing pain she feels will never go away.
The suffering of running back to the building, running from an AR-15, and, the shooting while I was running back. That's a lot of trauma.
Marine was the educator Texas DPS initially accused of propping open a school door leading to the tragedy.
I knew it wasn't true.
But just days later, authorities corrected their statement after Marine's attorney spoke up.
Being blamed for leaving that door open and being blamed for those 21 lives, that's like double trauma. And no one will ever understand.
Traumatized and heartbroken, Marine isolated herself for 3 months, fearing judgment from the victims' families and the community.
I'm constantly looking out the windows. I have my curtain closed all the time, and I still
During our interview, the sound of the helicopter overhead, triggering Marine's fight to keep composed.
The helicopter sound is a trigger.
A trigger which she tries to cancel out.
I have my headphones on the wall, but I always have them with me when I hear it coming. I usually put them on. I just try to be real.
Alongside her daughters and grandchildren, Marine found her therapy through art.
She's like, "Really, Mom?"
Her home filled with colorful signs of hope and resilience.
I found some calmness in painting. The paintings call your name.
Each brushstroke helping heal.
It's almost like I feel a happiness when I paint.
As Marine paints through the pain,
It's almost like they're telling me, "Do this."
those 21 souls lost at Robb forever in her heart.
It might be crazy for some people to believe this, but when I paint, I can feel them around me. I'll talk to them and I'll tell them, "What am I going to paint now?" Because some of them were artists, I can hear them laughing.
Each canvas tells a story of strength.
And one day my daughter asked me, she was watching me paint, and she asked me, "Do you notice that you don't shake when you're painting?"
Strength fueled by survival.
I am not giving up. My fight started.
And a mission to hold someone accountable.
All of us in that building acted in good faith, greater than those 376 law enforcement officers that were outside doing nothing.
And Marine was recently recognized for being with Uvalde CISD for 25 years. Her future at the district remains unknown. And by the way, a number of her canvases of art that are on display at the local library here in Uvalde. She told me that she's sold many of her paintings, going as far as Colorado and even Florida. And she definitely plans to continue advocating for change and accountability in the future. In Uvalde, Zach Briggs, KENS 5.
Thank you, Zach.
It's Uvalde remembered like we remember it years ago. Like we remember it years later. And for our if we hadn't known about this, we would have done a 2-year special. But things can get sidetracked. But what's been going on in this case? Well, we all know the person, the school security guard, thingamajig. He's now fired. But has there been more? Under-resourced Uvalde grapples with the aftermath. But where does the investigation stand at this point?
So 2 years ago today, a sunny morning in Uvalde, Texas, turned
January this year, Justice Department released a scathing report after it found critical failures. All of it founded, if you remember from Columbine High, this is very similar to Columbine. This is actually like Columbine, to tell the truth. So, if there's any more developments, we'll let you know. But until the time comes, we'll let you know. Difficult children. Still to come. Could your child be very difficult or a real wild one? You're going to meet an expert who says something different. He's got some advice that even you as a parent can take. Also, could you be also an issue all about sleepwalking? It rarely happens, but wait till you see the link between sleepwalking and murder. And coming up next, absent dads. Yeah, this is coming. Absent dads. Stay with us. I grew up with a mom and a dad. My brother grew up with a mother and father. My sister grew up with a mother and father. Could you ever imagine growing up without a dad? Or because of a breakup? Could you imagine living with a single mother? Absent fathers really make headlines, are really talked about often. Father absence hinders development from early infancy through childhood and into adulthood. Psychological harm of father absence experienced during childhood appears throughout the life course. Quality of the father-child relationship matters more than the specific amount of hours spent together. So everyone's question always is, where's Daddy? Where is he? Daddy's not coming home. He might be in jail. He might be working a lot of hours. He might be studies have shown that kids raised without dads are more likely to hit poverty, drop out of school, commit crime, all that. According to fathers.com, it's the research. As supporting the data below, children from the fatherless homes are more likely to be poor, become involved in drug and alcohol abuse, drop out of school, and suffer from health and emotional problems. Boys are more likely to become involved in crime, and girls are more likely to become pregnant as teens. Poverty. Children in father-absent homes are almost 4 times likely to be poor. 2011, 12% of children married in couple families were living in poverty. If we were to look at this source from 10 years, all the way, this is from 8%, from 2001. From 2011, 14 years ago, this was at 10%. But with female-headed households, the number goes up to 47% back in 2011. The lowest ever was back in 2001 for all the female-headed households. Married couples, that's the highest ever. 11% back in 2009. Drug and alcohol abuse. That's how it happens. Boys without dads around can more likely to hit poverty, drop out of school, and looking at drugs and alcohol. There's significant more drug use among children who do not live with their mother and father. Physical and emotional health. A study of 1977 children, age 3 or older, living with a residential father or a father figure, found that children living with married biological parents that significantly fewer anxiety and internalized behavior problems than children living with at least one non-biological parent. Educational achievement. Children in grades 7 through 12 who have lived with at least one biological parent, youth that experience divorce, separation, or non-union birth reported lower grade point averages than those who have always lived with both biological parents. Children living with their married biological father tested a significantly higher level than those living with a non-biological father. Father involvement in school is associated with higher likelihood of student in mostly A's. This was true for fathers in biological parent families with stepfathers, and fathers hidden in single-parent families. 71% of high school dropouts are fatherless. Fatherless children have more trouble academically scoring poorly on tests of reading, mathematics, and thinking skills. Children from father-absent homes are more likely to be truant from school, more likely to be excluded from school, more likely to leave school at the age of 16, and less likely to attain academic and professional qualifications of adulthood. Crime. A study using data from the National Longitudinal Study of Adolescent Health explored the relationship between family structure and risk of violent acts in neighborhoods. Results revealed that the number of fathers is low in a neighborhood, and there is an increase in acts of teen violence. The statistical data show that 1% increase in the proportion of single-parent families in neighborhoods is associated with 3% increase. Children ages 10 to 17 living with two biological adopted parents were significantly less likely to experience sexual assault, maltreatment, other types of major violence, and non-victimization of the adversary. Which brings us lastly to number 6. Sexual activity and teen pregnancy. Being raised by a single mother raises the risk of teen pregnancy, varying with less than a high school degree, and forming marriage where both partners have less than a high school degree. A study using a sample of over 1,400 rural Southern associates, meaning 851 females and 558 males aged 11 to 18, investigated the correlation between father absence and self-reported sexual activity. The results reveal that adolescents in father absence homes were more likely to report being sexually active compared to adolescents living with their fathers. I mean, this ain't like I'm gonna go get the milk and then you come back 10 years later. This is something very different. How do we know all about absent dads and what can we do? Here's John Stossel.
You gotta get up early now, Mom.
It's bedtime in the Duran household.
Did you have a good day? No. You didn't?
Yeah.
How about a kiss goodnight?
What's missing from this goodnight scene in Ann Arbor, Michigan, is what's missing in about a third of American families: the presence of the father.
Night, Josh.
7-year-old Josh is upset about it.
It's just my dad. I never got to see him before. It's because he doesn't really talk to anyone.
Josh has never met his dad. His mother, Kathy, had already split up with Josh's father by the time she discovered she was pregnant. She never doubted she could raise a child alone. She thought fathers were useful, but certainly not necessary. Kathy was surprised when at age 3, Josh talked about missing something.
I was taking him to daycare, and he just all of a sudden looked at me and said, "Do we have a daddy?" And I just, was stunned. Okay, you finish eating as soon as you're done.
Josh is hyperactive, but Kathy's now convinced that much of his behavioral problems are related to the fact that he has no relationship with his dad.
There's a napkin right behind you.
No, they're right.
Turn around, it's right there.
I don't see a napkin.
I see it.
I don't.
You better get it.
Not.
At times he'll say, I hate myself. And that's a strong statement for a child to say, especially
You
when
think he might not if his father were around?
I think that he would feel better if he knew his dad.
Kathy has repeatedly asked Josh's father to get involved with Josh, to even meet Josh. But so far, he's refused. He didn't want to talk to us either. You annoyed with him?
No, I'm not angry at him in any way. I don't even know he didn't do anything. I never get to even see him before.
You wish you were around?
Yeah,
What would you do with him?
I don't know. Guy things.
What's a guy thing?
Sports. Go out and do other things.
What happens to children when fathers are not involved in their lives? The results are very clear. Children suffer.
Wade Horn and David Blankenhorn lead the National Fatherhood Initiative, a group dedicated to persuading America's fathers to take more responsibility.
Unless we reverse this drift toward fatherlessness, we will be a nation in decline.
Numerous studies do show that kids that grow up without fathers are more likely to fail in school, that the boys are more likely to commit crimes, that the teenage girls are more likely to get pregnant.
On almost any measure of child well-being, when fathers are absent, children do worse.
Why? Maybe it's just that single mothers are too overwhelmed to parent well.
It's a very stressful, exhausting, tiring life.
She always works. I could have someone to stay home with me. I always have to go to some stupid place after school, and I don't like it. I just want to go home on the bus and my dad can be there.
I can see that kids need two parents, but why must it be a father? Why not two women?
Men and women do things differently when it comes to parenting. Men are not simply substitute mommies when mom can't be there. They behave differently around children.
This isn't just his theory. Several tests back it up. A study done years ago at Harvard found even infants respond differently to mothers and fathers. Parents were told simply interact with your child. Mothers comforted the babies, held them snugly, cooed to them, talked baby talk. Most fathers talk differently.
Oh, we had beef today for the first time. How was that?
The fathers' games were much more likely to pull the baby up into this kind of heightened state of alertness.
Dr. Michael Yodman ran the study.
Whether it was tapping the baby on the baby's arm, shaking the baby's legs, buttoning the baby's lips.
Other studies with older infants showed that boy babies who had fathers who played actively with them scored higher on baby IQ tests. Dr. Ross Park has studied parents' interaction with kids for 28 years.
Play is a very complicated business. Moms and dads tend to specialize. Mother becomes more of a caregiver, manager, as well as playmate. Father's specialty seems to be play.
Back like a horsey?
You see it clearly in the hours of tapes Dr. Park made of kids with their parents. Mothers do a lot of talking and reading.
Well, why do you think the turtles, man?
Fathers did lots of wrestling, what the scientists call rough and tumble play. Park says one reason America is so violent is that many kids don't do this with their dads.
Play has serious consequences. It teaches some serious lessons. This teaches kids how to regulate their emotions. And you gotta learn to signal to dad saying, hey dad, that's enough. Shut it down, slow it down. I've had too much.
Why is that useful?
The kids are learning through dad how to modulate their play, how to play effectively, how to read
Stop when it gets too rough.
Stop when it gets too rough.
And this, he says, is an important step toward becoming a civilized man.
Why can't a mother teach a boy how to be a man?
The best mother in the world cannot be a father. Children with the best mothers in the world want and need their fathers. The boy needs to figure out what it means to be a man. Boys who don't get that from their father tend to develop what the researchers call protest masculinity or hypermasculinity. They're the kids who are much more likely to say, I'm going to hurt you if you look at me the wrong way. I've got that swagger and that kind of extreme masculine behavior.
Because they have to prove to themselves they're a man.
The father is like the gatekeeper for the son into the world of feeling like he's a good man.
They say fathers are also more likely to make kids feel good about taking risks.
If you go to any playground in America and you look at children who are climbing on the jungle gym, what you'll see is a father who's sitting there, standing there saying, almost at the top, you're almost at the top, keep going. And a mother who's saying, oh, be careful, be careful. And what's important about that is that children both need to be encouraged to achieve, but have a sense that if they falter, there's someone there to catch them, to nurture them.
How might a father parent him differently than you do?
Well, I hate to admit this, but I've had this conversation with other women. Men tend to have this authority. I always say, I don't know if it's the male testosterone, but when they walk into a room and they tell a child to pick up their toys, they're probably going to do that faster than if the mother says it.
There's research that backs that up too. Psychology professor Mavis Hetherington had moms and dads ask kids to clean up their toys. Overwhelmingly, the kids cleaned up faster for dad.
Mothers will natter at their children. By nattering, I mean they will chatter away, firing out commands without any follow-through on the commands.
You want to hit the bed?
You gotta brush your teeth. I no hit no bed.
Honey, it's getting late. You got school tomorrow. No, you're not staying up later.
So they'll say, now, look at this mess, look at this mess. Why don't you pick up this mess? If you don't pick up this mess, you're going to get into real trouble. Fathers are far less likely to natter at children. Children see fathers as more threatening and more powerful than mothers.
Josh, get ready. Get your legs up. For Josh, Kathy thought a male presence was so important that she's enrolled him in karate lessons and has him spend summers with a family friend, Jeff. Back home, when things get rough, even the threat of getting Jeff involved makes a difference.
Josh is really giving me an argument that I'm just not getting anywhere. The trick is that we pick up the phone and say, I'm calling Jeff, and it's no, it's like.
What, Jeff over the phone?
Yeah, even that. Well, he has a very masculine voice. It's very strong and very authoritarian.
Is there something about a man's voice that makes you sort of sit up and take notice more, obey?
Yeah.
She says that sometimes you'll listen to Jeff when you won't listen to her.
Because he's a guy, and I obey guys. I don't really like to obey ladies.
And again, it's not just boys who need fathers.
Fatherless girls are much more likely to engage in early sex, to have children outside of marriage.
Because the father wasn't there to give them some sort of confidence?
For the daughter, the first man in her life is her father. He's the first man who she wants to love and be loved by. And if she loves her father and is loved by her father, she feels that she is love-worthy.
Which underscores what all the experts say, that it's not just any dad that makes the difference. It has to be an involved dad.
What men need to understand is that their children need them. They need their time. They don't need their money. They need their time. They need them to be there to read them stories at night. They need them to be there to help them celebrate their victories. And they need them to be there to help them when they have problems.
And Kathy now believes that fathers are more important than she thought they were when she had Josh.
You just have a good day.
Still, lots of kids raised by single moms do grow up just fine.
No, you don't. I'll see you tonight, honey. Have a good day.
It's just that it's harder.
Bye.
For everyone.
It is a challenge, John. Did Josh ever get to meet his father?
He did not. I had hoped that when his father saw this report, he would come forward, but he will not. His father says he is just not into parenting.
I'm sorry for Josh. But isn't there a countervailing trend, John, among fathers who want to be nurturing and to share parenting with the mother?
Well, I certainly think I'm seeing one, in that there are many signs of it, like the Million Man March and these Promise Keeper meetings that fill whole football stadiums. Men are talking about parenting now. It used to be sort of wimpy for a man to be a parent, and now it's more accepted and expected.
Sure.
People are talking about it.
It's not necessarily unmasculine to want to be nurturing to your child.
It's a good trend.
Thank you, John.
It's really a good trend. The bottom line here is just for all you fathers out there. I got a dad too. I have a father. I really get to see him every time. But I kind of just push it away. But after seeing this story, I think what I'm going to start doing from now on is seeing my father, catching up with him, spending some time with him, and start telling him, Dad, thank you for spending some time with me. It really means a lot to me. It means a lot from my heart. The bottom of my heart, really thank you. That's just what I really mean. I plan on showing this to my mom. This is how we would feel inside my heart. So just because again, after seeing this story, it makes me feel like seeing my father after almost a year. Last time I saw him was Thanksgiving, so going back to all the times, I don't know how to describe it. Even when sleepwalking can really happen to you. Are you ever a sleepwalker? And could sleepwalking lead to murder? Stay with us and we'll answer the question. I was watching an old Disney Channel clip talking about zombie moms. Must stop zombies, zombies, zombies. Yes, stop zombies. Must stop zombie mom. What I can really tell was Zach was sleepwalking. Now, it really happens when you act like a zombie. Like really a zombie. But with your eyes just closed. You're talking in your sleep, you're sleepwalking, and you feel like there's no help out there. But there is. Tonight, we're going to show you some help that you can get when you're sleepwalking. Here again, John Stossel.
This is what researchers say is the most common form of sleepwalking. Just sitting up, or talking, or screaming. It's most prevalent in children. This kind of screaming is called night terrors. It's awful for the parents, who naturally believe their child's going through something horrible and damaging. But the experts say, just let the child go through it. Don't try to wake her. They claim this will have no permanent effect on the child.
It's probably a manifestation of an immature brain that will mature with time, and the children don't remember it the next day, so there's really no psychological trauma. They have no memory of it.
Dr. Carlos Schenk helps run the Minnesota Regional Sleep Disorder Center in Minneapolis. Hours of videotaping people in sleep labs has taught him and other scientists that sleepwalking includes singing and eating and talking in your sleep.
Wait. No.
All these behaviors are relatively common. It becomes a problem only when it disturbs your sleep so much that you're tired during the day, or if your sleep behavior is so extreme that you become a threat to someone, or a threat to yourself. Some 10 years ago, researchers at this sleep lab noticed that they were seeing lots of people who had injured themselves. Were you surprised at what you started saying?
We were very surprised. From the textbooks, we had read that sleepwalking and the bumps in the night are really in the domain of children. And we started seeing adults of every age, including older adults in their 60s and 70s, who would walk around, jump around, go through windows.
What happened? 3 years ago, Marv Olson cracked his neck and cut himself badly by jumping right through this bedroom window. Fortunately, it was on the first floor.
It's like I was shot out the window.
And this is a store window. This is 2 panes of glass. It's a lot to go through.
2 panes of glass and a screen this time.
You went right through.
It's amazing that I didn't wake up then.
He had blood running down his face, and he was holding his head, and he had one of the drapes from his room wrapped around him, and I could just see the whites of his eyes.
At the hospital, they told him to get one of these restraining jackets so he could tie himself to the bed. No one suggested a sleep clinic. For years, people have tried to control sleepwalkers by tying them up, or as in this case, putting barbed wire around the bed. An inventor in Maine actually patented this technique. They thought such steps were necessary because they assumed sleepwalkers were possessed or insane. Now doctors say it's not really a psychological problem. It's a physical disorder, and we can treat it.
Now, there are 2 basic stages of sleep, non-dream and dream sleep. Most sleepwalking occurs during the deeper non-sleep. Some people, no one certain why, during that stage, start to act as if they're awake.
So you're in this twilight zone of being half awake, half asleep, really out of it, but you're able to move around, and your eyes can see, but you have poor judgment. So it's really a twilight state.
Now, a few sleepwalkers do walk while they're dreaming. This is unusual because when most of us dream, our brain sends out a mysterious signal that paralyzes our muscles. With some sleepwalkers, the paralyzing mechanism doesn't work, and therefore they may act out their dreams. This happens most often with older men, like Mel Abel. For 11 years, he sleepwalked. Often his wife had to lead him back to bed.
Lots of times I found him over by the window there, you know. I think he was going to go out on the balcony and jump off or something. I don't know.
Mel has hurt himself sleepwalking many times, usually by leaping out of bed.
One time you jumped all the way over to this dresser?
Many times over the years. Tell me about it. I couldn't do it if I tried now, but I'd be laying down there and I'd take a loop, make a regular loop and go head first into something. And I laid on the floor for a while and oh, did that hurt. I couldn't come to for a little while.
Did you try to get help?
I went to I don't know how many different doctors, and they tried different medications. And finally the doctor told me, he said, there isn't anything else I can do for you.
Again, no one suggested a sleep clinic. Mel ended up wearing a belt, which he then tied to the bedpost.
This saved a lot of teeth and a lot of skin on my head from jumping. Whoops.
So this worked?
This worked. But I thought, isn't this a heck of a way to live?
Sandy Seacon is fortunate to be getting help while she's young.
Okay, I'm placing the electrode on the mastoid behind your right ear. It's a little bold disc.
At the clinic, they attach electrodes to just about every part of her body. This way, they can monitor her brain waves, her heart rate, her eye movements, all the things that go on while she sleeps. The purpose of this is to rule out other physical problems. Only then will they address the sleepwalking.
They can help?
Yeah.
What will they do?
I'm not sure yet. Hopefully find out what's wrong with me, maybe give me some medication to help me sleep.
Would that be good? I mean, what?
Anything would be better than what's happening now. Yeah.
What's happening now is that she's trying to go to college and work full-time at this deli to pay for it. But she can barely do that because sleepwalking at night makes her so tired during the day. You'd be tired too if you spent your nights doing what she does.
I'll walk around the house. I beat up my room. I take things off the walls.
What do you mean beat up your room?
I don't know, I just go crazy and I hit whatever's in my way. I break things. I take everything off the walls and put them on the floor.
One night, she ripped her bedroom door right off its hinges.
My dad came downstairs and he asked me what I was doing, and I said, I'm not sure, and I put it against the wall and I went back to bed.
But normally you wouldn't be strong enough to do that.
Right.
So something happens in your sleep that really changes you.
Yeah. It's like you're a different person.
The brain can get so energized in sleep that it is capable of generating behaviors that people cannot do while they're awake. It's amazing, superhuman strength.
Yet while your body may be working well, your mind probably isn't. Sleepwalkers often display very poor judgment. For example, sometimes they eat strange things.
They can make cat food sandwiches, salt sandwiches, buttered cigarettes, put on 3 or 4 sets of clothing at a time, or walk out into the snow in the winter when it's 20 below zero in Minnesota without any clothes on.
Does this scare you?
Yeah, I'm afraid to go to sleep at night, and I'm afraid I'm going to hurt myself. I was walking in my sleep one night, and I'm not sure what I was kicking, but I hurt my foot really bad, and I thought it was broken. So I had to go to the hospital and get it x-rayed, and then he referred me here to the clinic.
Once the electrodes are attached, Sandy is sent to bed. She'll spend the next 2 nights here. She probably won't sleepwalk, she says, because as far as she knows, she sleepwalks only once every week or 2. In any case, the camera will record what she does. And what did she do? Well, 1 hour into the first night, Sandy screams. Other patients complained it woke them up, but Sandy never woke up.
Did you sleepwalk last night here?
I'm not sure what I did last night.
Well, I can tell you because I just watched the tape that you sat up, screamed, and went right back down. Do you remember that?
Not at all.
The experts say that's typical. It's like getting a phone call in the middle of the night. You may be able to carry on a coherent conversation, but do you remember any of it the next morning? Probably not.
That's one reason the camera is helpful,
to convince sleepwalkers that they really do what they do. On Sandy's second night, she stands up and almost hurts herself. A technician runs in to check on her.
You going?
Sandy never wakes up. She just settles back into bed. Now, sleepwalking like this can be dangerous not just to the sleepwalker, but also to others. One night, Mel dreamed he was wrestling a deer and had to break its neck.
I'll just put one hand under your chin like this and one up here, and then give you a snap like that and snap the neck, you know. But when I put my hand up here, she jumped out of bed and hollered and said, "What in the world are you trying to do?"
Wouldn't even touch me now to do that. It just scares me. I mean, I went through it a lot with his dreams, but this time he just was going to, I thought, choke me. And I jumped up and I said, "What in the devil are you doing?"
Well, I came to right away, and I just sat there for about a minute. And then I started crying. I thought, oh my God, I could have broke her neck and killed her.
Which brings us to the question, what should you do if you or someone you know sleepwalks? Well, the experts say if it happens only once or twice, there's no need to go to a sleep lab. Should you wake the sleepwalker?
No, I would redirect the sleepwalker back to bed.
Why not wake him up?
If someone is in the midst of an agitated episode, you can get socked in the face trying to wake them up. So it's better to duck and try to have them get back to bed.
Then, if it keeps happening, get to a sleep lab. Evaluation will cost about $1,000 to $2,000, but the labs can help. Most give patients a small dose of a tranquilizer or a sleeping pill. At higher doses, the drugs can make you drowsy and can be addictive. But the doctors say under medical supervision, they're safe, and they usually work instantly. It's now 2 months since Sandy went to the clinic. She says she feels like a new person.
Before I would never wake up like before noon, and now I wake up without an alarm clock like at 7 or 8 a.m. Once in a while I'll talk in my sleep and walk, but very seldom.
The medication worked for Marv as well. After 50 years of sleepwalking, he hasn't walked once since he started taking the drug. And Mel?
It's a miracle. I still dream, but my dreams are altogether different. I maybe shouldn't be saying this. I get to thinking that I'm back to 17 or 18. I wake up in the morning and I thought, oh, gee, that was only a dream.
John, how are Mel and Sandy doing now?
Very well. Mel says it's like a whole new world. He's much more awake during the day since he started taking the drug. Sandy has sleepwalked twice in the past 2 years. Both times she'd forgotten to take her pill. So the medicine works.
Mel said that he nearly killed his wife, and I've forgotten. Did anyone ever actually kill someone while they were asleep?
People have killed. Now, whether they were really sleepwalking or just trying to stay out of jail is hard to know, but it's been used as a defense in murder trials about a dozen times. In one case, a man drove 14 miles, broke into his mother-in-law's house, stabbed her to death. The jury heard testimony that he had a history of sleepwalking and that he liked his mother-in-law, and so they acquitted him.
Amazing. Thank you, John.
It's often used in jury trials. You would convince the jury, oh, I was sleepwalking. The jury had to go through all, like you sit with the jury, like, oh, okay, this, like, all through the history. And then the jury would be convinced, like, oh, he was just sleepwalking. That's basically all it was. It's all about the sleepwalking. How can we prevent it? Just make sure of it. Just take some proper medication. Melatonin is one of the best medications, sleeping meds ever. It can really help. You want to find other sleeping pills? Visit your local grocery store. And they have those sleeping pills. They have melatonin or other sleeping pills that you can buy. And don't ever commit murder while you're sleepwalking. If you may use that in a jury trial, it just may not help. Coming up, do you have a wild child or a child who just won't listen? Scott's parents do. Scott probably does not listen. And for other parents, it's like, what do we do? John Stossel's back to give us some help with some pointers. Stay with us. It's your fault. You spoiled him. The do's and don'ts of parenting. We're not talking about the terrible twos. You spoil your child. I don't want you spoiling my son anymore. I want my son to become a man. We're not talking about the terrible twos. This is very different from spoiling your child, from not teaching your child right and wrong. There's all these other reasons. It's like, don't do this because if you do, then blah, 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 blah. You're about to be an expert who gives some different advice. And other parents would sit there and say, you gotta smack the child. He has a different theory about that. Here's John Stotson.
Why are you crying?
I had wanted a baby so badly. And then here she was, and she was giving me such a hard time and saying, why is this happening to me? You know, this isn't the way it was supposed to be.
Melody's daughter, Chase, is 2.
Chase would spiral out of control, and she would look me straight in the face and hit me. Hit me in the face, pull my ear, and she, for some reason, I felt that she was looking at me with hate in her eyes, and I would go to bed at night, and I'd lay there with my husband, and I would cry and say, she hates me. Why does she hate me?
He has driven me to tears. I called people up in the middle of the night, crying, hysterical. Look, I'm gonna kill this kid. Somebody better help me.
Yvonne Lee's son, Robert, is 6 years old.
I can't take this no more. I told him, look, I can't do this no more. You're driving me crazy.
I said stay away tonight. The minute I came in, my jacket wasn't off yet. I couldn't go to the bathroom. He was on me, riding me, throwing himself on the floor, kicking, screaming.
5-year-old John Eric has been so tough on his mother that there have been days when she's dreaded coming home from work.
There were nights, just about a year ago, that I would read my mail in a lobby because I could not face that 4.5-year-old. I couldn't do it one more night.
The choice the mother is left with is either there's something very wrong with her or the child is crazy.
Dr. Stanley Turecki was consulted by some of those parents because he wrote a book called The Difficult Child. The book struck a chord with enough parents that it's become a bestseller. Turecki classifies children from easy with some difficult traits to difficult to finally mother killers.
I mean, when you think about it, you know, this is really your mission in life. You hope for this very, very easy, malleable child, and you finish up with a child that bewilders you at every turn. Within a year or two, you feel in a victimized situation. Life every day is a never-ending series of power struggles. You can imagine what that does to a mother.
Turecki tells them that in almost all cases, it's not their fault. The child was just born that way. It's his temperament.
I'll say, Mommy, I'm trying very hard. I don't mean to do this. There's something inside that say, no, I can't sit still.
A high activity level is a common trait in difficult kids, but others are not at all hyperactive. There are plenty of ways to be difficult. Some are unusually stubborn.
For 2 weeks solid, she had to walk around with a plastic spoon, a yellow plastic spoon. Then when she was finished with the plastic spoon, she locked into this little red thing. For 2 weeks, she walked around. We couldn't leave the house without it.
When they tried to, there'd be
Screaming, kicking, spitting.
Really? She seemed so sweet when I met her. In fact, all the kids did. I took care of them for a while to try to better understand what difficult means. I thought they'd trash the room. But these kids were calm, cheerful, fun to be with. Maybe it's the parents' problem.
You're a wrestler.
Then a little wrestling was suggested.
Okay, you 3 against me.
No, it's only supposed to be 2 people.
Oh, 3 people in my game because I'm so big.
They were responsible about it, careful not to hurt each other. And when I said,
No hitting, just wrestling, all right?
they didn't hit. But then it got rougher.
Okay, wrestling is over.
And when I say this to my kids, they usually stop. They'd certainly stop if the command came from a relative stranger. Not these kids. Chase crawls into the pile with a box of glitter.
Time out, guys.
Now I was afraid someone would get hurt. I tried reading a story. This is often enough of a distraction to calm other kids I know.
But not these four. I felt totally incompetent at this point. Now I understood how the parents felt. Surely someone wiser than I would know what to do. Turecki says no.
That situation where you had 4 difficult children together, escalating out of control, once it had been allowed to go as far as it did, there was no good way out of it.
All right, no more wrestling, you two. You two, I'm afraid.
Now, a lot of parents would say what these kids need is a good smack.
I don't agree because it basically doesn't work. It's ineffective. Punishment is ineffective with these children.
What happens if you hit the child?
The child, usually because they are so stubborn and so willful, simply goes into a confrontational posture.
So what do you do? Well, let's watch as Dr. Turecki counsels a family. Janet and Mike Schmidt live in Trumbull, Connecticut.
I can see you're a smart.
Scott is 4. His parents say he's very difficult.
Come sit over here. That's right.
First, the doctor tries to determine how difficult. Does Scott listen at all?
Do you ever do bad stuff in school? No?
I clean toys up.
You clean toys up. Okay. Do you ever do bad stuff at home? Don't do that right now. Just keep on looking at me. Keep on looking at me. That's good for me. I'm not a needle doctor. I'm not going to give you a shot.
And that they can be very concerned. I mean,
Then he meets with the parents.
Point that I've called my husband. I'm telling him I'm going to walk out the door. When he was real active about a year and a half ago, and he was really uncontrollable, I got to the point where I just felt like I couldn't deal with him anymore, and I didn't want to try.
You know better than that. You know better than to take ice cream and dump it all over the place. Well, who did?
Laura did.
Well, both of you did.
He's blaming his sister. That's 2-year-old Laura. Laura's not nearly as difficult as Scott.
Why don't you ask Mommy to help you? Huh? Excuse me?
We spent several days with the Schmidt family, watching Scott make life hard.
You're the one who made the mess. Look at this. This is where you sat.
Dr. Turecki later classified Scott as moderately difficult.
Get in here. Get in here.
My family.
Scott's teachers see the problem in school. The other kids sit down and listen to the story. Not Scott.
Scott, you need to sit because the other children cannot say B, all right?
Last year, the school suggested Scott be left behind a year in hopes that would make him less disruptive.
Hey, someone's gonna get hurt. Someone's gonna get hurt. I understand. Someone is going to get hurt.
However, after watching Scott at home, we wondered if part of the problem was that his mother expects too much. Boys will be boys. Is it necessary that he never run in the house?
What are you banging on?
Never bang on things?
What are you banging on?
On the table.
No. You bang on the wall?
If she doesn't want him to hit things, why'd she give him a sword?
No. No.
What else do you do with a sword? Dr. Turecki says part of discipline is setting reasonable goals. If you say no all the time, it's much harder to enforce.
Sit in the tub. Because you could fall and hit your head. That's why.
Scott's dad has a little more success.
Sit in the tub. Sit.
But not much.
Thank you. Scott, I realize you want to stand, but you too, Laura. I want you to sit, please. Scott, stand up one more. Scott, sit down. You stand up one more time.
All right. I mean, what's going on then is too much of it. There's too much explanation. There are too many, if you do this, then this is what will happen. I don't want you to do it. These are the reasons for not doing it.
Dr. Turecki watched these scenes before talking to the Schmidts.
A golden word to remember with him, for both of you, watching you interacting with him, is simplicity. Simplicity and brevity.
His first advice to them, make instructions short.
Both of you tend to over-reason and over-explain with him. You say things in 2 or 3 different ways when they can be said in just one very simple kind of way.
I asked you not to do it.
Second, to make sure your child listens when you give a command, get him to look you in the eye.
Look at me. Me.
Janet's been trying this, but Turecki says she's doing it the wrong way.
If you say, look at me when you're angry, he will tune you out. Did you notice the way I handled him in the waiting room? Did you notice how gently I kept on bringing him back to focus? How I noticed when he was drifting away and then would bring him back to focus? Just look at me again. Look at me again. Just a little bit look. When you use look at me in that kind of a way, as a friendly, I'm on your side, I'm helping you kind of an attitude, rather than look at me, you brat, it becomes something entirely different, you see.
Mom.
Mommy.
Mommy's getting dinner on the table.
Third, to lay down a new rule, say no eating with your fingers, hold the discussion away from the problem.
You sit him down and you say something like this to him. You say to him, Scott, you're doing very well in school and we're proud of you. But there's one part of your behavior that's babyish.
Dad, don't put your hands in the food, please.
And that's that you eat with your fingers at the table. We want you to know from now onwards, the rule in our house is that this is not allowed. That is the rule.
Go to the bathroom.
He tells them to practice such a planned discussion. So what rule do they want to make?
Before you leave the house in the morning, you need to tinkle. How do you want to say it?
Fine.
Not need to, have to.
You have to.
You have to. Right? That's the rule.
That's the rule.
Okay. Who's going to say it? You are?
Fine. Yes.
Then they bring Scott back in. Dr. Turecki says always begin these discussions with a compliment.
It's very good today in Dr. Turecki's office. But I have something I want to talk to you about. We're going to have a new rule in the house. Every morning, before you leave the house, you need to tinkle.
To make sure the child understands the rule, ask him to repeat it.
Look at me. Before we leave the house every morning, you need to tinkle. You have to tinkle.
I did already.
Yes. Now, do you understand? Repeat it back to me, please.
Yes.
Can you tell me what I said?
Yeah.
What did I say?
You said, when you leave the house in the morning, you have a pee.
Very good.
And we know you're going to do your best to do that, right?
Finally, end these discussions by telling the child, do your best.
Good job.
Good job.
You see how clean the whole thing was? That's what a planned discussion is.
Janet and Mike will feel better in a month?
The parents have to break their habits first, not wait for the child to break his. If they can break some of their habits, I think that little Scott will be very, very responsive.
How you doing?
Good.
It's now 5 weeks later, and things are better.
Good. Very good job.
He's a healthy, happy little boy. He just needed some management. Some definite, strong management.
What do you want to drink? Do you know?
The planned discussions worked. One got Scott to help set the table.
Yes.
And now he eats with a fork.
Cut that a little bit, aren't you?
At least some of the time.
You want me to get you that?
Other planned discussions have led him to fasten his own seatbelt in the car. And what about the meeting we watched about going to the bathroom before leaving the house?
It's part of his routine. He does it.
Just automatic, just part of the routine.
Yeah.
That's easier.
Much easier. Yeah.
And I'm in command. He's not in command. I'm in the management
But
seat.
he was in command?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Big time.
That was his whole technique. He would get you involved in these conversations till the point you just lost it. And he was getting attention that way.
The dog tells us when you eat in the morning.
You eat breakfast?
Finally, Dr. Turecki suggested they make a chart, like this one, that lists the things Scott is supposed to do after getting up in the morning and before going to bed.
What does the orange mean? In the morning?
In the morning when we get dressed.
The chart helps avoid power struggles because now it's not a debate between parent and child, it's just the way it is. It's on the chart.
He likes the chart. He came in and pointed and he said, "That's Scott." And I said, "Yes, that's your chart." And we got him. He was nailed right from the start.
And it's a clear improvement this way?
Yes. He never dressed himself before. Never.
I felt like this kid was going to be a wild maniac. But he's a cute, loving, fun kid. And I can enjoy that. That's something I could not do before.
He's wearing 20 party hats. See him all? Look at that. Look at he's got a...
Cute kids. But it's nice to know that this is not a hopeless situation. There is remedy there, and I think it'd be worth reviewing those basic points on how properly to deal with a difficult child.
There are actually more points. We had time for 3, and those 3 are keep it simple. We as parents tend to say, now, don't do this because if you do, then blah, 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 blah. And I think often the child just hears the blah, blah, blah. So it's okay to just say, sit down now. You don't always have to explain. Secondly, to discuss a problem, discuss it away from the problem. Have a planned discussion when you're not angry. Sit down with the child, say, look at me. Hugh, I want you to stop kicking Barbara. Okay? And ask him to repeat it so you know he understands, and then say, do your best. And finally, the chart is helpful for planning evening and morning activities. That's true. It doesn't always work, but...
Well, it's easy with one, but when I saw you with all those kids, I thought, what must it be like for teachers?
The teacher has 4 difficult children like that. It's very tough.
Very, very interesting and good news. Thank you, John.
Hugh, what did I say? You told me to stop kicking Barbara. That's what I would have been like. Look at me. I want you to stop kicking. Look at me. Joe, I want you to stop kicking Miss Seeds. That's how it would be like. I mean, discuss it with the child away from the problem. Discuss it. Ask them to repeat it and say, do your best. That's how it is. And next season, we're going to focus on family first. Some hints and tips what you need to know to put your family back first. Inspired by Dr. Phil, Family First. Which I may read, Family First. It's all about the commando parenting. We'll have that for you next season. Could there be a loophole in fraud? We're about to explain next. Stay with us. Real estate fraud. We always hear about it, and we always hear about it in the headlines, all about real estate fraud. But could there be some loopholes in real estate fraud? Every fraud that you look up, that you do some research on, they always tend to find a loophole. But for real estate, there is actually a loophole. Here's Les Trent.
The alleged scammer behind the shocking attempt to snatch Graceland from the family of Elvis Presley is coming out of the woodwork. An email he sent to Inside Edition declares, "We've stolen millions from you blind fool Americans. We sit back and laugh at you idiots. Come and find us in Nigeria." Just last week, Elvis's granddaughter, actress Riley Keough, foiled the attempt to steal Graceland when a judge threw out the outrageous claims. But we're now learning that other brazen efforts have been made to steal iconic buildings from their rightful owners.
The brazenness of it, the sheer volume of it, is really, really shocking.
A scammer actually tried to steal Petco Park, home of the San Diego Padres. And 48-year-old Mickey Burrito has pled not guilty to allegedly trying to snatch possession of the iconic New Yorker hotel. Another scammer targeted Halle Berry's LA home and even tried to have the locks changed. 24-year-old Arnaldo Ortiz targeted some of the wealthiest neighborhoods in Dallas. Here's Lisa Guerrero.
Several of the homes were mansions, multi-million-dollar properties in swanky neighborhoods like this.
He stole this $2.6 million mansion and this $1.2 million house. Assistant District Attorney Philip Clark says it's the craziest case he's ever seen.
Ortiz files this fraudulent deed, takes it to the marshals, says, I own this property now, kick those people out. The marshals have to do that. They go to the door, they say you have 3 days to move out, you're being evicted.
Ortiz stole an abandoned Walmart, a Krispy Kreme donut shop, even a Burger King. How do the scammers do it? They forge a deed and file it with the county clerk. Easy as that.
I don't want to broadcast to the world how easy it is to commit. On the other hand, the only way we're going to fix it is if people understand this.
Basically, we need to make it, we gotta toughen the law. That's common sense. You want to get rid of loopholes? You make the law tougher. You toughen up the laws, and that can make it easy. If you toughen up laws, it can be tougher for scammers to actually claim possession of houses or buildings. There's nothing more to talking about bees. The bee-apocalypse. Basically, I mean, just take a look at this.
Have you heard about that? Have you heard about that other environmental crisis? Honeybees are dying.
Something is killing America's bee population.
For years, the media have talked about
Bee-apocalypse. Bees dying off, disappearing.
all the news shows cover the disaster.
This might be one of the most interesting, disturbing, and puzzling stories to come along in a long time.
Famous actors are sold of the bee-apocalypse.
30% of the honeybees disappearing.
That could have a devastating impact on agriculture.
But wait, grocery stores still offer lots of food. Baseball games are stopped until a beekeeper removes bees. Even here in Manhattan, a beekeeper sells millions of bees. Yet the media say
Bees are dying in droves.
Now, about 20 years ago, some American bees did die.
It's called colony collapse disorder.
Beekeepers would come back to their hives and they'd be gone. All the bees would be gone.
For several years, beekeepers lost lots of bees.
So this is what you call a dead hive?
Yep, empty box. No bees.
But beekeepers adjusted. They rebuilt the lost colonies by splitting hives.
Dividing colonies to make up new hives?
No one knows what caused colony collapse disorder, and after a few years, it diminished. Since then, there are 31% more bees in America. They could have just Googled bee population and they would have seen them going up.
Absolutely. It's farcical.
Science writer John Entine runs the Genetic Literacy Project. It challenges scientific misinformation in the media.
We're not in any way facing an apocalypse involving bees. Things have never been better in terms of the numbers of bees globally.
The numbers go up, but their dying stories continued.
Bees are disappearing worldwide.
All you have to do is read the basic science on these issues, whether it's on the genetic literacy.
Nobody reads that.
They don't read that.
Look, more people are going to watch the video that says, you might starve.
Do you like to eat? The disappearance of honeybees could have a drastic effect on our nation's food supply, which could lead to millions of people starving in the following years.
The media are so irresponsible. Time predicted a world without bees, even though this beekeeper who gave the magazine this bee for their photo shoot would have told them.
The bees will outlast you. They've been around since the Cretaceous period.
I don't remember seeing Time apologize for its cover.
Time has not apologized or even written a new article that puts this in science perspective. The New York Times, about 5 years later, had a cover story about the insect Armageddon, predicting catastrophe. We're losing insects around the world. We're not losing insects around the world.
Did the Times ever apologize for its magazine cover?
No, they skipped on to another crisis.
There's always a scare.
Catastrophe, exaggeration, that's what plays, that's what gets the clicks.
And if you read their entire stories,
they don't really have a lot of science. They don't have key scientists, entomologists, giving their opinions on this. What they have are the Environmental Working Group or Pesticide Action Network framing these issues.
They're disappearing. That's why Greenpeace set itself a challenge to put a stop to the deaths of thousands of bees.
Activists make money by scaring people about loss of species.
If we don't act now, every wild polar bear could be gone forever.
Hysteria generates donations, and the oxygen for these organizations is money donated by people who think they're doing good.
Why is it so important to donate to this fundraiser for Greenpeace? Because it's too hot, because it's too cold, because it rains, because it doesn't.
Many of these environmental groups, their policies harm people in the United States and globally.
How? Well, one way is that the groups demand countries ban fertilizers and new pesticides. But the newest chemicals are often the best ones.
Today's pesticides are safer than ever.
The activists blame pesticides for that colony collapse disorder, even though other countries using the same pesticides had no colony collapse. But the facts don't matter. The moronic protests continued.
The government isn't doing enough to save the bee on all causes of bee decline, but particularly pesticides.
Even though bee numbers are at a record high, gullible politicians bought the scare, and some places banned the newest pesticides.
The European Union voted to suspend the use of neonicotinoids because of possible links to bee collapse.
That meant farmers often used older, more dangerous chemicals that do kill bees. The natural food people say, organic, you just don't have to have the chemicals. Buy organic and you don't get them.
They use chemicals extensively.
Wait, organic farmers use chemicals? Yes.
It's not like organic farmers can sprinkle organic fairy dust to get rid of insects and weeds.
Instead, they use natural chemicals.
An example is copper sulfate. It's one of the most toxic chemicals in the world. Organic chemicals, because they're not designed to be targeted, in many cases are far worse.
Sri Lanka's president listened to the activists and banned chemical pesticides and fertilizers. Suddenly, the same farms produced much less food.
They were forced to go organic overnight, and their production has plummeted.
Food prices rose 80%. People invaded the presidential mansion. The president fled the country, and the new government ended the crisis only by making chemical fertilizer legal again.
This attack on industrial chemicals is really a way for the environmental industry, and that's what it is, to go after what they call big ag, big corporations. It's really an anti-capitalist movement.
Hey! No, GMOs.
The anti-capitalists oppose GMOs, genetically modified organisms. Environmental activists persuaded most European countries to basically ban growing GMO crops. But genetic modification allows farmers to grow more food on less land. It creates plants more resistant to disease and insects, allowing farmers to use fewer pesticides. GMOs benefit everyone, especially poor people. Scientists in Bangladesh invented a better GMO eggplant.
That's decreased the use of chemicals by 85%, allowing the women and children who are doing most of the farming to live a much more viable life. So we really have to be smart about these things. We're not going to.
We're not being smart, though.
No, we're following an outdated 40-year-old environmental script that just doesn't work in this technologically innovative world. They are outdated, and they are hurting the very people, especially the developing world, that they claim to want to help.
The anti-capitalists do hurt people, often badly. I covered that Sri Lanka chemical.
And what about the truth of GMOs? Take a look at this.
Stop eating this genetically modified crap.
People pay more for food because protesters like these convince us that organic is better.
Consider going organic, as if your life depends on it.
I wish you were so baby.
This person being arrested at the White House is Alexis Badenmeyer, political director of the Organic Consumers Association. You make poor parents feel bad that they can't afford to pay triple the cost to buy their kids organic foods they've been fooled into thinking is better.
That's the safest with the fewest pesticides. And I know
Costs 3 times as much?
So there are certain things that are more expensive, like a dozen eggs, but the nutrition is a huge difference.
No, it isn't. Studies find little difference. It's not worth the triple the price.
It is. It's worth it.
Look, if you want to pay 3 times more, that's your right. But it's remarkable that a small group of scientifically illiterate people has convinced most Americans that organic is better. And worse, convinced the government to force all of us to pay more.
Are GMOs making you sick?
Now they're obsessing about bioengineered food.
Companies who profit from altering DNA are declaring open season on all parts of nature.
They say GMOs, genetically modified organisms, poison us. This is nonsense. Modifying DNA may sound creepy, but people have crossbred plants and animals for years. You think a poodle's natural? The corn we have today, there's nothing natural about that. What the native people ate, we'd find inedible.
What an ignorant thing to say.
Well, I've tried to eat the stuff. It's nothing like modern corn.
To eat
Those
native
dry,
corn varieties.
native corn, those dry kernels. I mean, you can mock me, but what's your answer?
You're just saying like indigenous corn is like somehow inferior because you've seen it dried and it has tiny little kernels.
Yeah.
Nearly inedible kernels.
That's another myth of the industry. But people like you believe that.
Yes. And I also believe it's good that genetic modification now lets us alter nature more precisely.
We can go directly to the DNA responsible.
That gives us plants that taste better, plants more resistant to disease, even plants that save lives.
Vitamin A deficiency is a silent killer. Each year, at least 500,000 children go blind or die for lack of this crucial micronutrient.
But now genetic modification can stop that by adding vitamin A. Scientists did that to rice they call golden rice.
I have heard of golden rice. That was a project that all of the chemical companies invested in. It was the big savior. We were going to have
prevented blindness.
Right.
But because people in poor countries listen to groups like hers and become fearful that Americans want to poison them, activists have stopped golden rice research.
Hundreds of environmental activists stormed a Philippines government test field. They uprooted and destroyed all the plants.
Golden rice hasn't succeeded, partly because scientifically ignorant fools like you have convinced the world that it's harmful when it isn't.
I knew at a certain point you would resort to name calling, but it doesn't change the science on this.
Golden rice may still succeed because the more educated skeptics now understand they were utterly wrong about GMOs. The New York Times points out that many environmental groups have quietly walked back their opposition. The science is clear, says a former opponent in the Wall Street Journal. They're perfectly safe.
Hey! No, GMOs.
But the hardcore organic zealots will not be convinced. Badenmeyer claims GMOs cause cancer. We're using more GMOs than ever. There's less cancer now, and lifespans keep increasing.
Yeah, I don't know where you're getting your facts.
Lifespans aren't increasing?
1 out of 2 of us, half of us will get cancer in our lifetime.
Because we live long enough to get cancer. You don't think that's true?
No, I don't.
You don't think we're living longer?
Compared to when, 100 years ago?
Compared to 10 years ago, compared
Really?
to 20 years ago.
I'd like to see your stats on that.
Okay, here are the stats. The lifespan change in America over the past 100 years.
The GMO issue just has not been investigated enough.
It will never be investigated enough to satisfy these people. So when the National Academy of Sciences in their 600-page report calls GMOs safe, they're just making stuff up?
Yeah. Yeah.
She's convinced another group of ignorant people, politicians.
Why don't we just put it on the package?
The USDA's new rules for labeling genetically modified foods took effect today.
Congress now has ruled that any food with GMOs must be labeled. Some politicians think that's free.
It doesn't cost anymore. This idea that this is an effort that will raise food prices is ridiculous.
But it does, by millions if not billions of dollars. The organic promoters are wrong on the costs and wrong on the science. But they've won the battle of public opinion. People willingly pay more for food that's no better. And overseas, people go blind and die because natural food zealots convince people that wonderful breakthroughs like GMOs are really seeds of death.
It causes infertility, it causes immune system failure, it causes holes in the GI tract, it causes multiple organ system failure.
Thanks for watching.
Wow. Coming up on Friday, we're going to have a 60-minute story all about genetically modified foods with a fish story. Scott Pelley has that story. We'll have a preview of it next, so stay with us as we do our break. We'll be right back. Do you remember Y2K? Y2K, we're back in 2000, was all about like, no more computers. We go back to the dark days where Jesus was born. Well, Michael Green had a great memory of when he pranked his father into the Y2K. It's just really funny. Take a look.
Then, the story about Y2K. So first, if you don't know about Y2K,
Basically, and I have very little understanding of this myself, but the idea was that when they first started making computers, you know, space was really expensive, and so to save money, listen to this, to save money, they decided to implement, instead of 4 numbers, 2 numbers, so 97, 98, 99. And the fear was that when it hit 2000, everything was going to start over, thus creating the beginning of mankind again. Nothing would work. Which really, if you think about it, sort of makes no fucking sense. But everybody was afraid that the world was over. That, and there's more, you know, a more intricate reasoning about Y2K than what I just explained to you. Look it up, check out Y2K. Everybody was terrified that planes were going to fall out of the skies and the world would go back to the days where we had no computers or phones or television, and we were going back to the 1800s and we were growing our own food again. And so everybody was terrified. Everybody was stocking up on shit for the end of the world. January 1st, 2000, the end. And Dad was one of them. Dad was one of those people that thoroughly believed the Y2K bug was going to affect everybody. And he told everybody he could imagine about it. We'd go to the flea markets. Well, you better be prepared. January 1st, this shit's over. Oh, Jesus is coming back. Every time Dad watched the news, goddamn Tina, we gotta make as much money as we can in December. Y'all ain't gonna have much for Christmas. Dad had a stack of water next to the door that he was starting to build up. Next to the water was a stack of jarred stewed tomatoes. Kind of like what he has right now. For those of you who don't know, Grandpa's mom died on December 25th, 1999 at 6 in the morning, so Christmas morning his mom died. So I decided I wanted to try to lighten the mood come January 1st, because Dad was really in a bad way. He had just bought a Chihuahua that we named Pi. He was really deflective of anything. He wasn't really talking. And understandably, his mom just died. His mom was his best friend. So she was gone, and he didn't really have much going on. He wasn't smiling. So I decided I was going to try to lighten the mood a little bit. So, Dad had a stack of water next to the door that he was starting to build up. Next to the water was a stack of jarred stewed tomatoes. Kind of like what he has right now. It was his belief that can openers weren't going to work, stoves weren't going to work on us. We had a grill set up so he could cook charcoal. And his plan was, after it happened, to start cooking stuff through pots on the grill and try to survive best we could until the government could find a patch to fix everything. Or if Jesus came. So there we are, December 31st, 1999. We're all watching the TV. The ball's dropping. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Boom. Lights cut off. I was in the laundry room to cut off the power breaker, but I could hear Dad in the living room. Goddamn, Tina, it happened! It fucking happened, Tina! Oh, shit! Dad's scrambling around the living room. Goddamn, fuck! Oh, shit, it's the fucking end of the world! Goddamn, Jesus coming! Goddamn, computer stop working! You can hear fireworks shooting in the sky behind us. Dad's going, what the fuck did you shoot fireworks for? The war's over! Dad starts taking the food out of the fridge and putting it in a cooler that he had set up with ice. I start laughing my ass off. I couldn't handle it anymore. Here I am. Hey, Dad! Psh, lights on! And I'm blurry. And the look on Dad's face, I'll never forget. It was unlike any look I've gotten on a prank that I've gotten today. He looked at me. Dad does this right here. He looks at me. Shit! I couldn't do it. And he just explodes. You goddamn no good dick licking motherfucker. He goes on a rampage. He kicks the cooler with all the food in it. He takes this thing of canned jars that he had, stewed tomatoes and salsas and beans, and he chucks it at the front door for it to shatter in the yard. He slams the front glass door and it shatters. He was absolutely livid that I would shut the breaker off. Really, I was just trying to lighten the mood. Everybody was so depressed. I thought it'd be funny. I was laughing, you know, my cousin Jason was there. He started laughing. We're all laughing. It was funny, right? No, goddamn, why is it funny, motherfucker? Find you a new place to live. In the end, he laughed. 3 days later, but he didn't talk to me till then. But it took him 3 days to figure out the joke. He laughed. Y2K never happened, and as usual, fear and propaganda won over angry grandpa. That's the Y2K story. So the other day on my sister's channel, which you can...
That is kind of funny. Never pull a prank like that. Wow. Alright, coming up on Friday, it's all about gene splicing in our food, like potato chips, soft drinks, ketchup, to name a few. But how much of the food do you know is the product of gene splicing? Then on the Throwback Thursday, I'll look at our finale into A Dark Victory. Actually, there's not going to be a Throwback Thursday. There might be, but I don't know what we're going to talk about. So that's Give Me a Break for this Wednesday going to Thursday. We'll see you again tomorrow for Throwback Thursday. If not, we'll see you again for Give Me a Break Friday. For everyone here at YouTube, and Give Me a Break. Stop bullying, speak up. Concentration, not strength. No jaywalking. No Y2K pranks. Have a good night.